It was my 65th birthday, and the digital clock on my bank statement read 9:34 a.m. I was logged into the retirement account I'd been feeding for 40 years, first as a secretary, then as an office manager. I had saved and skimped and foregone every unnecessary luxury, also that number would one day secure my future. It was supposed to be my celebration, the first day I was officially retired, and the first day I could finally truly relax. I had planned to look at my balance, smile, and start planning that small trip to the coast I'd always wanted. Instead, when the page loaded, the number that usually read over $120,000 now showed a balance of $253.14. My breath caught in my throat. I refreshed the page. I rebooted my computer. The number stayed the same. It was gone. All of it.
40 years of sacrifice vanished, and I knew with the same sick cold certainty that hits you just before a fever breaks who had done it. It was Michael, my son, and what he had done next wasn't just theft, it was a total annihilation of my future. Hello, I'm Carol, and this is the story of how my own adult son stole my retirement to chase a get-rich-quick scheme, and how I faced the agonizing decision to call the police on my own flesh and blood, knowing that justice was the only thing left that could save us both. I know many of you are listening from your homes, maybe while sipping tea or driving. Please take a moment to drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from. I always love feeling connected to you all. Michael was 28, charming and utterly adrift.
He had always been prone to big, reckless ideas, dropping out of college for a band, investing his first paycheck in a dubious startup. In the last year, his obsession had been cryptocurrency. He talked about Ethereum and NFTs with the fervor of a religious zealot, constantly telling me, "Mum, we're going to be rich. You just have to trust me." I had indulged him, of course. I'm his mother. I gave him a few $100s here and there, telling him to play responsibly, but I refused to let him touch my retirement, which was in a rock-solid, fixed-interest fund. I'd told him 1,000 times that money was untouchable. It was my heir. The initial shock of the missing money was quickly replaced by a forensic deep dive. I called the bank and the fund manager. They traced the source of the withdrawal immediately. It wasn't a hack.
It was a series of 5 large, legitimate transfers over the last 2 weeks, all initiated through my online portal. The final transfer required a 2-factor authentication code sent to my phone. That's what I remembered. 2 weeks ago, Michael had visited. He had asked to use my phone to check an email because his battery was dead. I'd handed it over without thinking. He had my password. He had access to my codes. He had waited until my birthday, the exact day the funds were technically available for penalty-free withdrawal, and he had cleaned me out. I called him, my voice shaking so badly I could barely form the words. "Michael, where is the money?" He paused, just a second too long. Then the frantic confession started, tumbling out in a rush of self-pity and entitlement. He admitted everything.
He claimed he didn't steal it. He borrowed it for an urgent investment opportunity that he promised would yield triple the amount in 3 months. He used the money, over $119,000, to buy a new, volatile, unproven crypto coin called Ethereum X. He had been so sure. The idea was to buy low and sell on the inevitable spike. The second blow came when I asked him to log into his investment account. I told him I needed to see the proof that my money was safe, even if it was locked in crypto. With a defeated sigh, he sent me a screenshot. The coin, Ethereum X, had crashed. Not a dip, but a total, catastrophic collapse. The value of his entire holding was now less than $500. He hadn't just stolen my retirement, he had vaporized it.
That night, I sat alone in my quiet house, facing a horrifying truth. I was 65 years old, I had no income, and I had $200 to my name. My son, the person I had spent my life protecting, had left me destitute. Michael was begging me, promising he would work 3 jobs to pay me back. But I knew his promises were empty. His recklessness was a deep, fundamental flaw in his character. If I let this go, I would enable him, and I would be ruined. I sought advice from my sister Marlene, who is a retired family lawyer. Marlene didn't mince words. "Carol, he committed a felony. This isn't just a loan. He used deception to steal over $100,000. If you let him off, you're telling him this behavior has no consequence. You need to call the police. Now." The decision was the hardest of my life. Calling the police on my son felt like tearing my own heart out.
But I had to choose, save my son from himself or save the woman who needed that money to survive. I chose survival. I chose justice. I walked into the local police station the next morning, my hands clammy, clutching a binder containing the wire transfer receipts and the screenshot of the empty crypto account. I filed a report for grand larceny and identity theft. The officer was kind but firm. "Mrs. Miller," he said, "justice has to take its due course." The process was agonizing. The police investigation moved quickly due to the clear paper trail. They arrested Michael 3 days later. It wasn't the police cruiser or the handcuffs that broke me. It was the photo of his shocked, tear-stained face they showed on the local news brief, a photo they pulled from his high school yearbook. The legal system worked with a cold, precise efficiency.
The prosecutor was clear. Michael had committed a white-collar crime of significant magnitude, especially considering the vulnerability of the victim, his mother, a newly retired senior citizen. The climax arrived at the sentencing hearing 4 months later. I sat in the front row, still devastated, but no longer begging for him. I had to face him. The judge, a formidable woman named Justice Hanson, delivered the sentence. She didn't just focus on the dollar amount. She focused on the breach of trust and the calculated cruelty of the timing. She sentenced Michael to 4 years in prison and mandated that his first 5 years of income, after release, be put into a court-monitored fund for full restitution to me. But the final act of justice wasn't the prison sentence. It was the judge's final statement to Michael, one that shattered his entitlement completely. "Mr. Miller, you stole your mother's future to fund a childish gamble. The best thing you can do for her, and for yourself, is to spend the next 4 years earning the maturity you clearly lack. You need to grow up, and prison is where you will do it." The judge didn't just sentence him. She gave him a path to accountability, one that only the severity of the law could enforce. I walked out of that courtroom financially ruined, but emotionally intact. The retirement money was gone, but the process of restitution was in place. I had to go back to work part-time as a receptionist, but for the first time in months, the burden of covering up my son's immaturity was lifted. I called the police, and justice took its due course. I didn't save Michael by bailing him out. I saved him by making him face the consequences of his actions.
And I saved myself by asserting that my future mattered more than his childish fantasy. Some families forgive and forget. Other families forgive and demand accountability. I chose accountability, and for the first time in years, I felt like the mother he needed, not the bank he abused. If you believe that tough love is sometimes the only love that works, then hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of secrets, survival, and poetic justice.